Well, today on the Family Answer Man, we're answering your questions about dealing with manipulation and gaining your control back from a biblical worldview on the Family Answer Man program. This is David Orgis, and I am here with Dr. Mark Crosby, the Family Answer Man himself. This time is designed to answer questions commonly asked in both the counseling and church settings. And our goal is to answer general questions from a biblical worldview through the lens of our collective years of experience and education to help you, our listeners, have a stronger, healthier, and happier family. Now, we want to thank today the incredible people at Winter's Air and Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats for underwriting today's show. Winter's Air is located in Denham Springs and services the Denham Springs and surrounding areas. Days Smokehouse is located at 35770 LA Highway 16 in Denham Springs. Now, the Family Answer Man program is not a therapy session, and this is not specific advice to your situation. Mental health is a very serious issue. Family dynamics can be and often are very complicated and dynamic. So, for in-depth answers to your questions, we do encourage you to seek professional counsel specific to your unique circumstances. But we do hope that this episode of the Family Answer Man will encourage you and inspire you to make the changes that will lead to a stronger and healthier and happier family. Well, Dr. Mark, it is good to be here with you today.
Yes.
And we are going to be talking about the issue of manipulation in the family. Is that a common topic that you run across in your profession as a counselor and as a pastor?
Yes. Manipulation is something that I think we've all done and we've all received. The reason why I say that is because when you were a teenager, when you were a child, you wanted to go out with that person, you wanted that car, you wanted that particular opportunity to go somewhere, spring break with your friends, whatever. The reality is that sometimes we would hear the word no. And so when we would hear those words, we would try to manipulate.
Yes.
Everyone's going. I'm, 16 now. I should be able to drive my own car or whatever. And so we begin to share these things with our parents. We get a little older, maybe in sales. Maybe you're selling widgets, okay? And you say to the customer, hey, I think this widget is just right for you. Well, you don't know that.
Yeah.
But that is a sales tactic.
Sales tactic. It sounds bad if you call it a manipulation tactic.
Exactly. But it's a sales tactic that many salesmen often use. But the reality is these are all mild forms of manipulation. And we've all done it. We've all heard it. But sometimes it gets serious. Sometimes it gets serious within the family, maybe between husband and wife, maybe between, again, parents and children, maybe between siblings or whoever it may be, where you're trying to gain control. You're trying to change someone else's mind. You're trying to get something done that you want that the others may not want, that the others may not see as being advantageous to the family or to the marriage or to the finances. How many husbands have said to their wives, we really need a boat. We really need that boat. That boat would go well, when we go on vacation, or we want that RV and we can save money doing this. And so we try to share our wants and needs, and sometimes we don't always use facts. Sometimes we don't always use truth. And whenever we start going down that road, what we're trying to do is control the situation, change the person's mind, change their perception, sometimes involving deception, to gain what we want. And in some cases, it seeks to exploit. Sometimes you see this in a dating relationship. So again, manipulation is something that we're all familiar with. We've been on both sides of that at various times. Again, not all manipulation is quote unquote evil. Sometimes it's just trying to maybe get something that we want that could be, innocent or, even wholesome, desirable. So, but the point is that it's something that we're all familiar with. But sometimes, especially in families, it can be very, very caustic and very disturbing between the family members.
Yeah, and like you said, not all attempts to get what we need are bad. However, those things can be taken and manipulated and put into a negative context.
Sure.
And I think that's what we're going to look at a little bit today on the Family Answer Man as our first question that we have for today. And the question came into we have an email for listeners that want to write into us. It's familyanswerman@loumc.org. Again, that's familyanswerman@loumc.org for anybody that wants to get in touch with the Family Answer Man, have your question answered here on air. The question that came in today says, I feel that my brother-in-law and sister-in-law manipulate every area of my family. Where we go, what we eat for the holidays, who comes over. So how do you handle a manipulator?
So again, as we said earlier, manipulation is about controlling others, about changing others. It's about wanting what I want. It's about, in many cases, deceiving others, sometimes using underhanded methods. It's wanting to gain, personal achievement, personal aims, personal goals, if you will. And sometimes it seeks to exploit. So I think the first thing that we all have to do is to recognize what are some of the signs of a manipulative person. What do they do? What are some of the things I need to be aware of? How do I know when I'm about to be manipulated? And then, how do I respond? How do I, begin to maybe slow this process down so I'm not completely and totally deceived and manipulated into doing something that I don't want? So the first thing is this. The first thing that a manipulator will do, and as you begin to, again, encounter the manipulator, and that is, no, they instill self-doubt in others. They will cause you to doubt yourself. They'll cause you to feel like you're not confident in what you're saying. Maybe in this case where the sister-in-law said, I think we should have, a casserole, potato casserole for with our turkey or whatever, and the other person said, well, not sure if I like that. And they'll say, well, yeah, of course, we all know that potato casserole goes with turkey or whatever, so they begin to put some doubt into your mind. They begin to deplete your confidence. So that's one of the things that they begin to do. They want to hold power over the other by saying, well, everybody knows, and you're perhaps the exception that doesn't know, and so therefore now you begin to doubt yourself.
Well, I was just curious. So that phrase, well, we all know, or everybody knows, are there common phrases that are typically used by manipulators?
Yeah, we're going to unpack that just a little bit. But
Okay.
Whenever you start hearing people, using these exaggerated terms, whenever you start hearing people using this authority that basically says everybody knows or everybody should know, again, in many cases, what they're doing is they're wanting you to believe that you're not in the know, that you're not smart enough. You don't have the confidence. You don't have the insight. Obviously, you don't have the training. Obviously, you're not skilled enough. Obviously, you're not, groomed enough to know what is right and what goes with what.
Which definitely causes a lot of self-doubt.
Of course, yeah. So whenever you start feeling as if you're losing your confidence, even though you may be familiar with whatever subject is being talked about, or when someone begins to cause you to rethink and doubt, your own abilities, that is a sign of manipulation. Number two, they are experts at guilt tripping. So when they start saying things and using some of your weaknesses or some of your history against you to get what they want. If they start saying, well, we all know what you did, 2 years ago, or do I have to bring that up and remind you of what you said? When they start going into your life and begin creating guilt inside of you to get what they want. Or, for example, a husband may say to a wife, well, when you wanted, that new car 2 years ago, I got it for you. Ooh. Why can't I get a boat? When you start going down that road, guilting a person into something, guilting a person into feeling like, well, I guess I need to because, I feel guilty because I needed that or I wanted that or I got to pick out the car or whatever, or, we're in debt because, I wrecked the car or whatever it may be. So when you start feeling guilted into something, then again, manipulation is occurring.
Okay, so self-doubt and guilt.
Correct. Number three, when they take advantage of your kindness, those who manipulate will use other people's good nature to their advantage. So again, and a key sign of that is when they don't return the favor that you're asking for. In other words, you've done something for them. They needed you to do something. You did it for them. You were kind about it. You're gracious. You're generous. But now you need something. And they go, sorry, don't have the time. Sorry, I can't do that. Or I'm too busy. I can't go down that road. I can't do that for you. So in other words, they will not return the favor when you need their help. but they will take advantage of your kindness. So when you start seeing that, I'm constantly doing for them because I'm kind and generous. I want to be helpful. I want to be gracious. I want to be accommodating. But whenever you need something from them, they're never around. They're never available. They're never involved. They're never interested. And if they do, it's just for a brief moment so they can check that box and move on. So that's a telltale sign.
I was say it sounds like a big red flag, and probably something that a lot of Christians deal with, because a lot of what you talked about, showing kindness, that's the fruit of the Spirit, is love and patience.
Right. And if I exactly.
Right.
And
love,
kindness.
Kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, like all those things that you want to exemplify as a Christian.
Right.
As a follower of Jesus, somebody could easily exploit those things.
Well, I think one of the great, and I know I'm going to step on a lot of toes when I say this. So for those of you who are driving, just kind of stay with us. But but the reality is this: how many times does this happen? Where, again, we've all experienced this on some level, at different times. But let's say, the adult children say to their mom or whatever, I need you to watch the kids. And mom says, sure, I'll be glad to. And that happens day after day, weekend after weekend. And then mom says to her son or to her daughter, can you bring me to the store? Can you bring me to my doctor's appointment? And we don't have time. We don't have the interest. We are too busy. And when you start seeing that over and over and over again, you can't help but wonder, is there some manipulation going on even in this situation?
Right, because there's an imbalance of what you're willing to do for each other.
Exactly. The fourth is this: when people start spreading false information on purpose, when they start circulating information that is false to other people so that they will get them on their side to have their purpose fulfilled.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you see this in families. Unfortunately, you see this in churches. You see this in business, where you're wanting the vote, or you're wanting the opportunity, or you're wanting the promotion, and you start again spreading false information to those around you so they can see how amazing you are and how unfit they may be. And so we see this a lot: businesses, churches, families. We see this, in other arenas, the homeowners association, so we see this, but that too is a form of manipulation. Number 5, if you're kind of keeping count, they never take blame. The manipulator never takes, responsibility for their actions. They're always blaming others. Everyone is always at fault. It's never their fault. Everyone else is to blame. And because everyone else is to blame, I should get what I want. They're wrong, I'm right, and that it should happen my way. And so this also, too, is another tactic. Number 6, they disguise. In other words, they bend the situation. They bend the truth. They bend the quote-unquote facts to suit themselves. And when you call them on it, number 7, they feign ignorance. Well, I didn't know, or nobody told me, or I'm not sure, if anyone ever, gave me that memo, or whatever it may be. And so they feign ignorance. And last of all, they make their tactics seem normal. How they manipulate, they make it seem as if this is just, how life works. This is just how we operate. This is just how things are supposed to be. And even though it may come across that way, the truth is that's not reality. And so these are, again, what they do. Now, the flip side is, how do we respond?
Right, because being able to identify and recognize somebody that's manipulating you obviously is helpful, to be able to identify that, know that. But if we don't know what to do, it's probably just going to lead to frustration.
Exactly.
Right? Because you can see it, and you probably see it more than you ever had before.
Right. And that's what's happening in this question. You have these in-laws who are calling all the shots. They are saying who can and who can't come to dinner, who can and who can't, be part of the holiday, what we're going to eat, and all these things. And so understanding how to respond is very important. So again, remember this, that the manipulator is about loss and gain. In other words, you lose and I gain.
That's the classic heads I win, tails you lose, right?
Exactly. So with that being said, the manipulator always has a goal in mind. In other words, again, using the sales example, when you hear you need this, or you must do that, or it must be this way. Those are, statements of the manipulator. You need this. We must do that. It must be this way. So one way of responding is to pause and ask a question. Ask, what other options do we have?
That's a good question.
Yeah, what other options do we have? When someone says you need this, or you must have that, or we must do it this way, it's okay to pause and say, I hear what you're saying, but what other options do we have? Now you're countering by slowing down the process. Now you're causing everyone to think critically, which is what the manipulator doesn't want you to do. And now you're simply looking at the fact that there are perhaps other ways of doing this, other options that are available, that we can at least slow this down and say, what other options do we have?
So the manipulator wants to speed things up, make it where it seems like there's one option, and get you to not think critically, but just take their word from it.
How many times have you heard someone say, if you don't buy it today, tomorrow the sale won't be here?
Right.
If you don't buy it today, this is your last day for this. This is your last opportunity.
You put it on the cart, and there's the clock starts ticking down. Right. You got this many seconds to your sale. It's ended.
And there'll never be another opportunity like this one. Okay. How many times have we all heard that? Well, again, so to slow that process down, to begin to think critically, ask the question, so what other options do we have?
Okay.
Secondly, they will try to tell you, again, what your mental state is. In other words, they'll say things like, well, why are you so angry about this? Or why can't you see this? Or why aren't you thinking clearly enough to understand this? So again, they will begin to tell you what your state of mind is. And whenever you hear that, again, be mindful that, again, this is a ploy that they bring up.
And that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do, is
Right.
to recognize their own emotions.
Right, exactly. And that's when you pause for a moment and you basically ask yourself, am I angry? Am I not thinking clearly? And then you begin to look for the facts. You begin to look for, maybe the opinion of others, which goes to number 3, and that is beware when they present an opinion as a fact. In other words, when they say things like, well, this gift is for this is just for you. This car is all about you. Or, this, widget is something you really need. Or they may say something, accusatory, such as, well, you always seem to flirt, or you always seem to say this or say that. In other words, they'll say things that really cannot be measured. And so sometimes you may want to ask the question, how do you know? How do you know this car's for me? How do you know that this makes me angry? How do you know what my emotions are?
So this is not a rhetorical question to yourself. This is an actual question back to the person.
Back to the person. Yeah. How do you know? So-and-so, doesn't want to come over here. Well, how do you know? In other words, they may be saying, we don't want this person here. They may be saying this person doesn't fit in with us. They may be saying this person maybe is not willing. And so the question is, so how do you know? Because sometimes the manipulator will speak for other people. They will speak without any facts. And sometimes you have to ask them the question, so where does this knowledge that you have come from?
Yeah, and that's good advice for anything, is checking the sources.
Exactly. So how do you know that this is true? A fourth thing is the manipulator will bring up what's called ambiguous social proof. Again, as we said before, everyone knows this. Okay. Again, ambiguous social proof. Everyone said it. Everyone is saying this. Everyone knows this.
You've never heard any of these things as a pastor
or a counselor, right? Well, the counter to that is, number one, why do you say that? And I hear differently. When someone says, well, everyone knows that this goes with that, you might want to say, well, how do you, who came up with that rule? Who came up with that? And I've heard differently. I've heard this can go with that. I've heard that you can, celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve if you so desire. Okay. If they say, but no one ever celebrates Christmas before the 25th or whatever. So I hear differently. Or no one should ever go to that place or go here or go there. Everyone knows that that's just, well, I hear differently. So in other words, you're slowing down the process of the manipulator. Number 5, if ever someone wants to confront you in a serious manner, in other words, there's a serious situation going on. Maybe something's happening at your job. Maybe something's happening in your family, and that's of a serious nature, and they want to confront you. They want, ask for a third party. Can someone else join us? Ask for a third party. And again, if we're going to go down this road in a legal manner, sometimes if ever, you're confronted, I think it's okay to say, I would like to have my attorney present.
Yeah.
You may be innocent, and I would think most of our listening audience, okay, if ever confronted. We're
going to assume that until you're proven guilty.
It will be, but it's okay to say, I would like to have my attorney present. It's okay to say, I think, the vice president of our company should be involved. I think my manager should be here. I think my supervisor should be here. I think whomever. But I think having a third party present in a very serious nature, I think that needs to be a part of the slowing down of this process.
Is that why marriage and couples counseling is so successful?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so because, again, a lot of times, when a couple comes in, working with a counselor, now we can kind of work out what's going on, what's happening. But when just the husband comes in or just the wife comes in, it's hard to, again, unpack all of the things that are happening. So again, I think when you have a third party available, not only do you have someone else that can maybe see things a little differently or keep things calm or keep things, flowing or whatever it may be, having a third party keeps the balance and also keeps maybe a non-emotional perspective as to what's going on.
Well, it also sounds like, earlier you talked about how a lot of times a manipulator will try to spread false information, try to, bring some of that out to other people. A third party also gives you a witness of this is what the truth was. Here's the accurate record.
Exactly. And saying, that's, those assumptions may not be true or those accusations may not be exactly what, was said or done or whatever. So that third party kind of keeps things on an even keel. It keeps things on the up and up, and especially, if there is some sort of legal accusation. So having legal representation I think is very important. If ever someone does confront you, in a serious manner. And if someone says, hey, look, let's have a cup of coffee, let's talk over this, or let's work this out, or whatever.
You don't need a lawyer for coffee.
Exactly. But if there is something that's going to involve, a very serious consequences going to come out of this, having a third party, I think, really slows the process down, especially if someone is wanting to be manipulative in this process. Also, last of all, beware of exaggerations and fabrications. Sometimes our memories, our emotions, our stories, when we are in a very emotional state of mind, sometimes gets really jumbled, and sometimes we don't think as clear. And so because of that, we have to be critical in our thinking. We have to make sure we have the facts, and we need to make sure that as we are looking at our facts and we are thinking, critically, that we ask for factual evidence. So again, if someone's trying to help us to recall something and we can't really think of it, they say, well, this is how it happened. You may want to ask for some factual evidence. You may want to ask for some other person that will be a part of the story, some other testimonial, if you will, that will be a part of what was being said or what was being done. So these are just some things I think we need to be mindful of whenever we are dealing with a manipulator and when we are responding to someone who loves to manipulate. And unfortunately, we all have them in our life.
Yeah.
And in some cases, like we said at the very beginning of our program, it may be mild.
Right.
In some cases, it may be, something that is just, kind of fun between, hey, I want a boat. Well, you got a car. And so back and forth. But sometimes it gets very serious.
Yeah. And like you said, sometimes it's mild and it's somebody that just has strong opinions on where they want to eat all the time, where they want to go out to eat. And it, it's sad, but we have seen and experienced, people that have had relationships destroyed because one person wanted to keep them from a family member. They wanted to keep them from someone else. And you can see that people can get really hurt very quickly.
Right. And for the pastors and business owners who are listening to this program right now, I know most of our pastors that will say that there's always going to be someone on a board or on a committee that wants to manipulate because they have a certain goal in mind.
Right.
They have a certain agenda. They have a certain perspective. They have something they feel like they want or they need. And so I think for the pastors who are listening who have to go to those business meetings and have to deal with board members and have to deal with committee members, to be mindful of some of these things. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to ask for facts, because sometimes a board member will say, well, all the church members feel this way. Well, I'm not sure if that's true. Okay?
Yeah.
Unless you've polled them all, and that's when you can say, well, I've heard differently.
Yeah.
And so my point is that we do this in our churches. Business is the same way. Homeowners association the same way. All the homeowners, feel that, your dog barks too loud. Well, maybe not. How are you measuring this?
Yeah.
How do you know this? Give me a little bit more information, not so ambiguous. I know that in a lot of churches, there is, for some people who love to manipulate, there is the them.
Yep.
Yeah. Or they. It's the they.
Yep.
They all said. They want this. They told me. They came to my office. Well, who is the they?
Yep.
And so we've all been down there.
Right.
We've all been on both sides of this. And so, but understanding it about yourself, understanding about those around you, understanding about your family members is so important so that you can work through some of this. Because again, it's a reality of our life. It's a reality of our family. It's a reality of our churches. It's a reality of our business.
And there you have it from the Family Answer Man. Just to recap those last few things that we should be looking for and doing. Beware of the exaggerations and fabrications. If it's a serious nature, have a third party. Look out for ambiguous social proof. Beware when they present opinions as facts. Recognize your own thoughts and emotions. And most importantly, pause when we can. Slow things down and let yourself catch up. Let the situation calm down and let the Holy Spirit step in and guide us. Well, we want to say thank you for being here with us on the Family Answer Man. We want to thank again the incredible people at Winter's Air and Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats for underwriting today's show. Winter's Air is located in Denham Springs and services the Denham Springs and surrounding areas. And Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats is located at 35770 LA Highway 16 in Denham Springs. As a reminder, this is not a therapy session, and we're not able to give you specific advice to your situation. Your mental health is a very serious issue, and family dynamics can be and often are very complicated and dynamic. So for in-depth answers to your questions, we encourage you to seek professional counsel specific to your unique circumstances. But we do hope that today's episode of the Family Answer Man will encourage you to leave a stronger, happier, and healthier family. And if you would like to get in touch with us and have your question answered on air, you can email us at familyanswerman@loumc.org. Again, that's familyanswerman@loumc.org, and we would love to hear from you.